Good evening. This hearing of the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission will now come to order. Today is Monday, October 17th, and the time is 6:10 p.m. And if you could all please rise, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, it's amazing to see this kind of turnout on a Monday evening. We saw all the cars in the parking lot and then saw that the library's closed tonight, so figured, wow, this must be for the hearing. And here you all are. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful to be here in Prescott Valley this evening. Our purpose tonight is to hear from you. That's the primary reason we're all here, is to obtain input. And we'll be doing that shortly. I'll be going through a whole public comment phase later in the meeting. I first wanted to, though, go through roll call and introduce some people around the room. And then also, I believe Mayor Skoog is going to come up and give a few words of welcome to all of us. So for roll call, Vice Chair Freeman, Vice Chair Herrera, Commissioner McNulty. Here. Commissioner Sturts. And other folks, and just so I should say, first, all the commissioners don't attend all of the meetings. We're kind of dividing up the state and attending different hearings at different times. So I'm sure the other commissioners are watching this online. We're streaming this over the internet, or if they're not available to do that, they will be sure to watch this hearing because it's all recorded, and you can even pull it up online at home at a later time. Other folks at the table include our legal counsel, Joe Canfield, our mapping consultant, Andrew Dreschler. We have a court reporter, Michelle, who's taking an accurate transcript of tonight's proceedings. Our public information officer is Stu Robinson, raising his hand over there. Our public outreach coordinators, Christy Olson and Lisa Schmelling. And then Christina Gomez, our deputy executive director, is here in the back. And feel free to contact any of these folks tonight if you need anything or have any questions or want to give us anything. They will be happy to accept it. So with that, I think we'll bring the mayor of Prescott Valley up, Harvey Skoog. And if you would like to just say a few words of welcome, that would be great.
Well, thank you. Good to see you all, and welcome. And welcome to you, Colleen, and all of the commission. Good to see you all. I'd like to take a few seconds, if I may, and introduce some of the VIPs that are out here. Start with Mayor Kirkendall. Can you believe it? He made it. Mayor Terry Nolan from Dewey-Humboldt. Right now, I'm not sure if there's any other mayors here. Rick Anderson, council member, Prescott Valley. Laura Lee Nye, councilwoman, Prescott Valley. Mike Flannery, retired councilman from Prescott Valley. Tom Turman, our county supervisor. State Representative Karen Fan, I saw her, I don't know where, oh, there she is. Tim Ernster, Sedona City Manager. Tim, where are you? Oh, there he is. Jesse Dowling from Cottonwood, council member. Carm Staker, one of our early mayors in Prescott Valley. I don't know where, there she is. Carm was mayor back in the mid-'80s when the first time I was sworn into office on the council. So if I've done okay, she taught me. If I'm not, I don't know who to blame. Myself, I guess. Cliff Hamilton, Vice Mayor of Sedona. There he is. And Pam Pearsall, our county assessor. Now, it's my hope I didn't miss anybody. If I did, I apologize. If I did, raise your hand so we can get you introduced. Mary Mallory, I'm sorry. Mary Mallory is here. Where's Mary at? Oh, there she is, way in the back. Tonight, you're going to have a little bit of fun with a subject known as redistricting. It does two things. Makes some people real happy, some people kind of frustrated. And I think that our commission, I'd like to thank them because, boy, they have a tough job. And there's going to be some people that are going to be unhappy with it. Others, I hope, are going to be very happy. And I hope the end result is it's going to make everyone happy. Of course, here in Yavapai County, we have a county of a community of interest. So our hope is that we can stay as intact as possible. Oh, there's Dave Maurer from the Prescott Chamber of Commerce, right? There he is. Sorry, I didn't see you there, Dave. I hope I didn't miss somebody, but if I did, I surely apologize. I understand that you're going to have your chance to speak tonight, and I'm going to sure encourage it because we need to, and the commission wants to hear your opinions. And we want the end result to be something that's going to be very satisfactory. So express yourself. Let us know what you want. Again, thank you all for coming and welcome to this meeting. I hope you're enjoying our fairly new library facility. I see a bunch of you standing, and I also see several empty chairs. So why don't you kind of move in and find a chair and make yourself comfortable, because there is places to sit. You might have to come down the middle row to get to the chairs. Anyway, thank you and welcome. And Colleen, you're back up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. Federal law requires us to offer translation and interpretive services to those who don't use English as their primary language. And tonight we have two interpreters who I'd like to call up to give a few words of welcome in their native tongues and to see if anybody needs any assistance. Beatriz Critas, for Spanish, Critas? Thank you. If you could come up and say a few words, that would be great.
Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. In accordance with the Voting Rights Act, an interpreter will be available at all public hearings in order to provide interpreting services that might be needed for those citizens that need interpreting services. Please contact the interpreter present at this meeting so that he or she can assist you. Will the interpreters please raise his or her hand so that you might be identified? I have to read this in Spanish also. Presidente Comisionados, damas y caballeros, de acuerdo con la Ley de Derechos Electorales, un intérprete estará disponible en todas las reuniones de audiencia pública a fin de proponerse interpretación que puedan ser necesarios para los ciudadanos que necesitan servicios de interpretación. Por favor, contacte al intérprete presente en esta ausencia para que él o ella pueda ayudar. Por favor, el intérprete levante la mano para que sea reconocido. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Our second interpreter is Nora Jim for Navajo. Can you speak directly, Ms. Jim? Yeah, thank you.
Commissioners da Notlinigi, Shazani do Shastwi, D.A. Andai Niligi Bebe Hasani, Bedate it at a Halnei 8 a allanda atleko at khapinanish il indolil edene balakanak ekodo ik edit hingi ya at khodolne ashonde kwa senedi allah eleniki bi at khalne in shikado lowat nesiniki at nabehot ahot akok at khalne again eleniki yadilni akho nihehosendolish. My name is Nora Jim. I'm with the Navajo tribe, and I'm here to assist any Navajo who might not understand what is going on with the redistricting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we have a presentation on the redistricting process from Mr. Dreschler, I just want to remind everyone that if you'd like to address the commission tonight, be sure to fill out a request to speak form that's found on the table over there. And we'll be sure to add you to the stack that I've got right here. If you do not wish to address the commission but still have input that you'd like to provide, there's a blue sheet in the packets and on the tables over there that you can fill out, and that testimony will be entered into the record just the same as if you stood here at the microphone or the podium tonight. So just to let you know about those, so be thinking about what you want to say in your public input that will be coming shortly. And with that, I think we'll turn it over to Mr. Dreschler for a presentation.
Good evening. We're here today to discuss the draft maps presented by the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission. The draft maps are currently under a 30-day review, which is the main reason we're here today, is to hear your opinions on the maps. We do want to hear what you like about the maps, what changes you would make, and any other input that you may have. Before we display the maps, we want to give you a quick overview of the process. Arizona's redistricting process is governed by the state constitution, as amended by voters in 2000 with the passage of Proposition 106. It stipulates that Arizona's Independent Redistricting Commission redraw Arizona's congressional and legislative districts to reflect the results of the most recent census. Due to the 2010 census, Arizona gained a congressional seat. So we'll be going from 8 congressional seats to 9 congressional seats. The 30 legislative seats, state Senate seats, and the 60 House seats will stay the same. What are the requirements of the state constitution via Proposition 106? The new district boundaries must, A, comply with the U.S. Constitution and the Voting Rights Act. B, have equal population. Criteria A and B are federally mandated. To the extent practicable, the districts must be C, compact and contiguous, D, respect communities of interest, E, use visible geographic features, city, town, and county boundaries, and undivided census tracts, F, favor competitive districts where no significant detriment to other goals. We just wanted to go over the Voting Rights Act for the presentation. Arizona's congressional and legislative districts must receive pre-clearance or approval from the Department of Justice or a federal court under Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act before they can take effect. To get pre-clearance, Arizona must demonstrate that the new districts do not discriminate against minority voters in purpose or effect, which means there can be no intentional or accidental discrimination. Under Section 5, Arizona's redistricting plans cannot be retrogressive. The plans cannot weaken or reduce minority voters' rights. The presence or discrimination can be determined by analyzing population data and election results. We wanted to go over the 6 steps that are involved in the timeline of the commission. Step 1 was setting up the commission. Earlier this year, the commissioners were appointed following a thorough screening process, and each of the commissioners serve as volunteers to the commission. The commissioners are Scott Freeman, Vice Chair, Jose Herrera, Vice Chair. Today with us is Chairwoman Colleen Mathis. Also today with us is Commissioner Linda McNulty, and Richard Sturts is the 5th Commissioner. Step 2 was the first round hearings. Before drawing a single line, the Commission held 23 public hearings around the state in July and August to get input from members of the public about issues relevant to redistricting, such as geography, communities of interest, minority voting rights, and competitiveness. Step 3 was mapping. Per Proposition 106, we started with a clean slate. The next step was we then divided the state into equal population and compact grid-like districts. The grid map is also a requirement of Proposition 106, and it's to show that we're starting off fresh and not taking in the last lines into consideration. The grid map was approved on August 18th. Since adopting the grid maps, the Commission has met more than 25 times to consider adjustments to the grid and accommodate all of the state constitutional criteria. During this time, they received additional public comments and draft maps. Approval of the draft maps. On October 3rd, the Commission approved the draft congressional map that was incorporated the changes based on all of the constitutional criteria. It approved the draft legislative map on October 10th, just 1 week ago. Step 4, second round of hearings. We're currently in the process of visiting 25 towns and cities to share the draft maps and receive additional public comment during the months of October and November. Step 5, final maps. Upon completion of public comment period, the Independent Redistricting Commission will adopt final maps. The final step, Step 6, is pre-clearance. Because Arizona is subject to Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, the district maps must be approved by the Federal Department of Justice or the federal court in Washington, D.C. before they can be used for Arizona's elections. Before we show you the draft map, we just wanted to go through the process and show you the evolution of the maps. This was the congressional map used in the 2010 election, and this was the map that was approved by the last commission. Per Proposition 106, we started with a blank slate, and then we moved to the grid map. Again, the grid map, which was approved on August 18th, took into two of the criteria, equal population and compactness. After more than 25 meetings, the commissioners voted to approve the draft map that you see here. Besides taking into consideration the 6 criteria, the commission took into consideration public comment provided via public meetings, round 1 of public hearings, comments mailed to the commission, emailed, hand-delivered, faxed, and telephoned in. Over 5,000 comments helped develop this map. As you can see, some of the highlights of this map include 2 predominantly rural districts, 3 border districts, 2 districts in the city of Tucson, 5 districts that are entirely in Maricopa County. It avoids splitting Arizona's Indian reservations, and 2 districts where minority voters have the opportunity to elect the candidate of their choice. The legislative map process followed a very similar process. This is the map that was most recently used in the 2010 elections. This also is the map that was approved by the last commission. Like the congressional map, they started off with a blank slate and then moved to the grid map. Again, the grid map was approved on August 18th and took into 2 considerations, equal population and compactness. From there, they moved on to the legislative map, which was approved just last week. Some of the features of the legislative map include, it takes into reflect the population growth and reduction. Under the old map, the one that was used in the 2010 elections, the old districts ranged in population from 155,000 to 378,000. The districts in the draft map range from 207,000 to 215,000. To comply with the Voting Rights Act, the draft map includes 10 districts which minority voters have the opportunity to elect the candidate of their choice. The draft includes 3 districts wholly within Pima County and 3 additional southern Arizona districts, 17 districts that are within Maricopa County, and 9 districts primarily rural. The commission wants to hear your input. You can fill out a request to speak form at today's hearing and provide the commission your input. Examples of input include your thoughts on any of the constitutional criteria, thoughts on the draft congressional map, and thoughts on the draft legislative map. You can submit your input by speaking at today's hearing. At the back of your packet of information that was handed out, you would have seen one of these blue sheets. You can either fill it out and leave it with us today. Otherwise, the address is on it, and you can mail that into the commission. The other option is to call the commissions, the phone number's on here. Or you can visit us at www.azredistricting.org, and there's a place where you can submit public comment there. Or call us at 602-542-5221, or toll free at 855-733-7478. We just want to give a quick overview of our website and point out some features that we think that you might find helpful in looking at the maps. And this is the homepage of the Commission's website, and you'll see on the top left an arrow for maps. There you can find the grid maps and all the maps that were taken into under consideration in developing the final draft maps. You'll see a link for meetings. If you wanted to watch any of the past meetings, there's a video of all the past meetings online, so you can see how the map, draft map came to what we have today. If you can submit public input, you click there and it'll take you to a screen where you can fill out your thoughts. And down below you'll see another arrow that has maps. If you click on either of these two options down below, it will take you to a screen that looks like this. And this is where you can find the draft maps. Besides the draft maps that you've received in your packets, we have a couple maps up today on the walls. And so if you click, one of the features that people have liked is the Google Map feature, and that's what was on display when you first came in the room. And if you click on the Google Maps, it'll take you to a screen that looks like this. And this is where this gives the ability to scroll and zoom in so you can see the exact boundaries of your district and see the surrounding districts. And when you zoom in, it gives you some great detail in terms of the exact neighborhoods boundaries that are drawn. And finally, we want you to stay connected. We want you to visit our website, azredistricting.org. And there's a feature on there that allows you to draw your own maps that you can submit to the commissioners. You can watch current meetings on there. We're going to be on the road for, I think, 20 more days, and you can watch all of them streamed live on the internet, or you can get caught up on past meetings, and you can get updates on future meetings there as well. You can follow us at Twitter at #AIRC, or friend us at Facebook. Again, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I will be around afterwards and would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dreschler. Great, well, we're now at the public comment portion of the meeting, and I've got about 40 requests to speak forms. So if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to limit comment tonight to 3 minutes per person. And if you hear the timer go off and you still have some things to say, just try to wrap it up as soon as you can. We won't cut you off instantly or anything like that. But it's just so that we can give everybody a chance to speak tonight. It's, again, really wonderful that this many of you came out to our hearing. That's what this is all about. And to the extent you can give us specific direction on the map, we'll take it. We want to hear what you like about the map or what you don't like about the map. It's both helpful comments. And if you don't like it, if you've thought about ways to modify it, please feel free to let us know about those, because that's very helpful. So our first person, just to remind everyone about public comment, if they could come up to the microphone and speak directly into it so that we can all hear you really well. And please spell your name for the court reporter so we get an accurate spelling. And if you could also just say where you're from if I don't say it. Most of you filled out the form and let me know that, so you don't need to if I say it, but if you didn't, please let us all know, just a city, town, or county where you reside. So with that, our first speaker is Cliff Hamilton, Vice Mayor for the City of Sedona.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and Commissioner McNulty and staff members. My name is Cliff Hamilton. I am the Vice Mayor of Sedona. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of the Sedona City Council and the City of Sedona. I can't think of a more thankless job than the one you folks have, and probably more so than being a small town city council member. But rather than pick on various kinds of things, we do have very specific requests for you tonight. And that involves a greater Sedona area. One of the important things about Sedona, and I want to speak about the Congressional District 1 that we're currently allocated in, it carves the city limits of Sedona out of the greater Sedona area. That greater Sedona area shares a post office. They all have a similar address. When we talk about the Red Rock Loop area, up Oak Creek Canyon, our village of Oak Creek, which is just south of us, we're all really one unit, sharing a post office, a Sedona address, a common fire district, a common school district, common voting precincts. So in terms of administrative issues, I think my request tonight is really not about politics or those kind of things. It's first about these administrative issues, which would be very helpful to have us all included in the same area. I know in the congressional district you have about 700,000 folks you're dealing with. So a few thousand each one way or another is probably not going to make a lot of difference in this particular issue. So our first fundamental, please keep the greater Sedona area together. Our second fundamental that the Council would like to request tonight is we very much believe that the Verde Valley is also very much a community. We share a very common workforce. Probably half of our workforce comes from outside of Sedona, coming in from Cottonwood, Camp Verde, and other sorts of areas. We share a common transit system. We share water economic development interests that are all participating together. So keeping the Verde Valley together in a common area is also very important to us, especially out here in rural Arizona. Legislative District 6 is the one that we're currently assigned to in the current map. We're generally quite happy with that because it meets those two principles of keeping the greater Sedona area together, and it also keeps most of the Verde Valley together as well. So we really don't have much comment on that other than we generally support it because it meets our fundamentals. And I think with that, I thank you very much for the chance to speak tonight, and certainly wish you well in this endeavor.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Representative Karen Fan from current LD1.
Thank you. First of all, welcome to Yavapai County. We appreciate you coming up and having these hearings. We know that you have put in a lot of effort. We know this is not easy, and we do thank you for the effort you are putting in. My concern tonight is I will be addressing the legislative district map with regards to communities of interest. I am speaking on behalf of many of our constituents. First of all, let me state that one of the biggest concerns that we have is the fact that the Verde Valley communities were separated away from the rest of Yavapai County. We understand that the city of Sedona would like to be more with the northern communities. However, when we talk about communities of interest, please believe me that all of us who live along the Verde River, for all of us that depend on the Verde River, its ecosystem, its water availability, we have worked for generations, we have worked for decades together to make sure that we keep that Verde River as precious as it possibly is, and make sure that we provide for the downriver users. If that were to be split away from the rest of Yavapai County, it would be very difficult for us to work together, because consequently, the city of Flagstaff and the population that comes from there would end up controlling much of what goes on in that whole Verde Valley area, instead of someone from Yavapai County addressing to keep our communities together. It is interesting that the majority of the Verde Valley mayors signed on wanting to be part of legislative, what we know as District 1. They do not want to be separated. We find it interesting that an effort, with all due respect to our tribal neighbors, in an effort to keep all of the tribes together, in an effort to appease the city of Flagstaff because they didn't want to be with the Navajo Nation, in essence, the rest of the state ended up getting the short end of the stick on some issues. When it comes to Yavapai County, we have communities of interest that not only entail the Verde River, but our infrastructure, our road transportation system that we have all worked so hard together, our economic development, as well as community health. One of the most frustrating things about the map as it existing, which does not show fully on this one map, but to the south, if the rest of the citizens don't understand, if left the way it is, we will also be taking in Wickenburg, Morristown, north of the north side of Surprise, the north side of Buckeye, Aguila, and a number of other communities in Maricopa County. While we all love our neighboring communities, part of our problem here is that it is not an unforeseeable thing that in the future that Yavapai County could end up having their representatives and their senator elected from either Coconino County or Maricopa County, which means that Yavapai County could end up with no representation whatsoever. And one little side note for history. We have always been Legislative District 1 because we were the first territorial capital, and it's a part of Arizona history. And if at all possible, we'd like to keep our history and we'd like to stay LD1. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Tom Thurman, Yavapai County Supervisor.
And again, too, welcome to Yavapai County. I can't hardly beat, I agree with everything that Representative Fan said. I just, so you guys understand, is the history of the Verde Valley and the Prescott side. We have this mountain range that seems to be more than a mountain range. For some reason, it's always split this county for years and years and years. Even when Jerome was a little town, a mining town, and Prescott was a little town, they always would fight. There's always something going on. We have turf wars between them and us. But you know what? We're still home. They're still home to us. There's been a period where they talked about in the Verde Valley of going off and creating their own county because they believe they had different interests. But they have complete different interests from Coconino County. They have much more in kind with us. Many of the things that we have on here, compactness is under one of them. That would keep Yavapai County more whole. Respect for communities of interest, we have much more in common with them than they do with Flagstaff or Point South. And of course the geographic feature of the Mingus Mountain. What you got to understand is this could tear up this county for future ability to get along with the folks in the Verde Valley and us on this side of the mountain. We, as the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors, when we did our redistricting, we made sure that there was one of the districts that was literally half on that side of the mountain and half on this side. So we have this olive branch that we all are one county, not separated by Mingus Mountain. And this just exacerbates a problem that we've had in the past, and I don't want to see that happen again, both in the legislative and congressional maps. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Terry Nolan, Mayor, Town of Dewey-Humboldt.
Thank you very much. And again, welcome to Yavapai County. We have a representative who has been attending your meetings continuously from the start, and he will present you with a resolution later on when he speaks. But just to emphasize what has already been said, to keep Yavapai County whole, and also the historic part of being in District 1. So again, thank you. I'm not going to say too much more because there's a lot of people that have a lot to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I like your hat. Our next speaker is Lou Smith, representing Self from Williamson Valley in Yavapai County.
Madam Chairman, Madam Single Commissioner, my name is Lou, L-O-U, Smith, S-M-I-T-H. I noticed nobody else could remember to spell their names as per instruction. Anyway, Yavapai County is and of itself complete and whole. We have people representing both sides of the mountains, and we have issues which are basically resolved within ourselves. You go splitting us up so that part of us, as was mentioned earlier, has the potential to be represented by, good heavens, Maricopa County. We should be by ourselves. We have sufficient population, just a smidget more brought down, and we're at the average. So please don't tear us up. Leave us alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Malcolm Barrett Jr., representing Self from Prescott.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioner McNulty. My name is Malcolm Barrett Jr. I'll spell the first name because that's more of a challenge than the last name usually. M-A-L-C-O-L-M, last name Barrett, B-A-R-R-E-T-T. I'm addressing you tonight primarily on the subject of the legislative district. In an earlier meeting when we talked about the target population of 215,000, Yavapai County in itself is just over 212,000. And yet in the proposed legislative district before us tonight, including Prescott and most of Yavapai County, you have a population figure, in fact, of 212,000 people. We have the same population as that in Yavapai County right now. To expand that district to the west and south by carving a population of 40,000 citizens, basically representing the Verde Valley, we have to go to the west and clear down to Interstate 10 to the northern boundaries of Buckeye to make up that 40,000 in population that has been carved out by the gerrymandering of the Verde Valley into the other district. I think we have a much better solution in just keeping Yavapai County whole. If you look at compactness, if you draw a straight line on the map from the northern side of Yavapai County clear down to Interstate 10, it's not really compact because driving, you're talking an over 2-hour drive. And having a 2-hour drive within one legislative district does not meet any definition of compact that I know of. In terms of community of interest, we as an entire county share those terms in terms of law enforcement, in terms of hospital districts, in terms of water, in terms of everything you can think of across the board. We really don't have anything in interest with Western Maricopa and Interstate 10 corridor. Now, one thing that bothers me from the beginning with the proposal of this legislative map is that this is virtually the same boundaries carved out on a proposal submitted by the city of Flagstaff, who hired a Democrat lobbyist who in fact is the vice chair of the Democrat committee, state committee. And here we have, and the proposal before us today does in fact that and virtually carves out the entire Verde Valley to meet the needs of the city of Flagstaff, and that is not in anybody's best interest. And I would also like to note that Yavapai County, as the mother county, representing since statehood 2/3 of the state of Arizona, I would like to maintain the designation of CD in Legislative District 1.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Steve Rutherford, Prescott Valley Economic Development Foundation. He's here? No? I'll call his name later if he stepped out. Sharon Egan from Prescott.
My name is Sharon Egan, E-G-A-N. And my purpose for being here this evening is to express my concern with regard to the company that helped you map out the votes in our county. I know that you helped Obama with some of his districting and voting situations, and I don't believe in my own heart that you can be independent and fair. And I'm wondering if this commission is going to try to do the same thing that Obama did and the Democrats did when they forced the health care plan down our throats. I'm hoping that you're not going to try to force this down our throats.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matthew Perry, representing Prescott.
My name is spelled M-A-T-T-H-E-W-P-E-R-R-Y, and I'm from Prescott in Yavapai County. I had spoken here previously at the last meeting, but my public comments haven't been incorporated in the map, so I figured I'd come here and repeat myself. But I think that there's a big difference from Prescott in places like Surprise, in Buckeye, and Fountain Hills. And I think we have a lot more in common with other rural areas like Williams and Mojave County, and I think that we should be incorporated in a completely, not predominantly, rural district. And I also think that when it comes to our legislative district, Yavapai County is a community of interest, period. We're not, we all share the same fire in education, in water districts. I'm not gonna not be friends with someone at Yavapai College because they come from Cottonwood or Camp Verde. And I don't think our political representation should be divided that way. And not to sound like a broken record, but please keep our community and our home together. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll read the next speaker name and then just so that you know who's coming up so that they can get ready to speak, just so we move it through because this is such a big room. Our next speaker will be Tom Steele. After Tom will be Peggy McGee and then Rose Sperry, just so you know. So Tom Steele, representing Self from Prescott Valley.
Good evening, Madam Chair, council members, and fellow citizens. As a young man, I remember being made aware of Eldridge Jerry, the politician from Massachusetts that created a district that looked like a salamander to benefit his own party. Now, I resented it then, and I resent it now. Now, while you're using a computer program to make these gyrations, we know that computer programs can predict what some people want them to predict. And I go back to the global warming scam, as I refer to it, that predicted that we were going to have massive increases in temperature in the last 10 years, which has been proven to be fraud. So computer programs, I don't think, are the answer. I've been here 8 years as a retired man, and I appreciate Yavapai County east and west of the Mingus Mountains. I appreciate the fact that this once was a territorial capital right in Prescott, thanks to Charlotte Hall. And I think to keep us united with our existing boundaries that we're comfortable with, our, as was mentioned, our college district, our systems of government, our water issues, that it would be sparingly popular to keep us all in one. And to see this most recent map where we are referred to as number 14, with a lump taken out, removing Sedona and that portion of the Verde Valley, and giving us citizens down in Maricopa, to me that just epitomized what I would consider gerrymandering. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Peggy McGee, representing Self from Yavapai County.
The name is Peggy, P-E-G-G-Y, McGee, M-A-G-E-E, and I'm from Prescott Valley. I would like to speak about Legislative District 14 and the fact that you've scooped out the Verde Valley, at least most of it. For many years, I was an adjunct instructor at Yavapai College, and I would have to teach both on the Prescott campus and on the Verde Valley campus, which is over in Clarkdale, which you have scooped out of Legislative District 14. I think we need to keep Yavapai County together and not scoop out for some unknown reason. If you take out that portion, you've got to add down into the southern part, which includes Maricopa County, and we don't have any interest there. So please, let's keep Yavapai County together. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rose Sperry, representing Self from Cottonwood, and after Rose will be Frank Davidson, Judy Davidson, and Thomas Kane.
Hi, my name is Rose Sperry, R-O-S-E-S-P-E-R-R-Y. I came with a big list of things to say. However, Representative Fan, the mayor of Dewey, Malcolm Barrett Jr., and everybody else has spoken, has said it like it is, and the way I feel is exactly the way they feel. Lastly, I'd like to thank you for letting us speak, and I hope that we're not just blowing in the wind. I sincerely pray that you all put your integrity first when making this great decision that will impact us all for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Frank Davidson, representing Self from Dewey-Humboldt.
Good evening, and thank you for all your hard work. I know what it is to be a volunteer. I would like to request that keeping the Yavapai County whole. We've lived here for about 7 years, and I'd like to see the police car, the sheriff's cars, and the county fire trucks all saying Yavapai County on them. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Judy Davidson, representing Self from Dewey-Humboldt.
Thank you. Judydavidson. I am relatively new to the area, and I find that I feel that our Yavapai County should stay together because we basically have the same interests. We're rural, we're country folk, and we really have nothing in common with the other areas that you're trying to put into with us. So if you can keep us all intact, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Thomas Kane, representing Self from Prescott, and after Thomas will be Charlene Mullen, Christine Lutz, and Rex Malden.
Last name is spelled K-A-Y-N, Tom Kane from Prescott. Commissioners, I'm going to talk about congressional districts a little bit more. Proposition 106 states that districts have to be compact and contiguous, and it should be clear to anyone that overall this requirement is not being adhered to in the drawing of the new CDs 4 and 1 and needs to be revisited by the Commission. Unlike the existing CD1, your current, now CD4 configuration is stretching, it's meandering, it's got peninsula-like outcroppings, it's haphazardly patched together with pieces of counties that encompass nearly the total northern to southern borders of the entire state, with counties that have notable differences in their priorities and the needs for the Prop 106 mandated fair and balanced state and federal representation. Moreover, I view this gerrymandering as a move to create one firmly Republican and one firmly Democratic district to represent the rural communities of Arizona. And this is a change from the firmly Republican existing CD2 and the competitive CD1 that now exists. In essence, you're proposing a washout, a potential stalemate, and I believe that that is something we do not need in the makeup of our overall rural representation. Hold my time. With the tools you have available, you should be able to draw 2 rural districts that would open the elections to representatives who have the same interests in mind in serving rural Arizona. Now, if that means 2 from one or the other of the major parties, or 2 honestly and closely competitive districts, so be it. My point is that the planned political splitting of rural Arizona is not in the best interest of the communities and the economies here. Now, Prop 106 also states that competitive districts are favored if they do not significantly harm the other goals that are listed. And one of these other goals is labeled communities of interest, and I'll address that shortly. Commissioners, what makes it difficult to comment on this is a lack of definitions. I was personally unable to find anything on the Commission's website glossary to inform me as to how the terms rural and communities of interest are defined. So as far as rural is concerned, I did some research on my own, and I'm going to offer you just a couple of short excerpts for your enlightenment. The term rural conjures widely, I'm reading now from some, the term rural conjures widely shared images of farms, ranches, villages, small towns, etc. Yet when it comes to distinguishing rural from urban places, researchers and policymakers employ a dizzying array of definitions, many definitions for rural. And the use of multiple definitions reflects the reality that rural and urban are multi-dimensional concepts. And how small is rural as compared to urban, metropolitan, a semi-urbanized area? Well, there's 3 different concepts of urban that lead to very different boundary definitions which define what rural is. There's the land use concept. There is the administrative concept. The land use concept is used by the Census Bureau. The administrative concept is used by the USDA in its rural development programs. And then there's the economic concept, which is used by most rural research applications. Commissioners, if you used population density only to determine what is rural and what isn't, I'm proposing that you've fallen short regarding how to best draw truly rural districts. If you've used population density figures only, then you've diminished the importance of the more broader communities of interest, like geography, topography, elevations, weather, plant climate zones, natural resource development similarities, agriculture. Commissioners, we're not into cotton growing and citrus and lettuce growing in Yavapai County, and yet you've tied us into counties that are.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you could close up, because we have a lot of people who want to speak. Thank you.
I had a lot of applause, so I lost time on that, which he hasn't got. He's got to
Okay.
give me back. So. These are points, if you'll bear with me, these are points that you haven't heard yet, okay? At least I don't believe you've heard yet. So then there's forestry and mining and extraction and ranching, education, transportation corridors. No, please know we don't have the use of the Colorado River like the other counties in the proposed district. So if you don't factor these, and I'm sure there's others, these issues into a north of and a south of Maricopa rural model with different communities of interest, then you've circumvented the terms of Prop 106. So, finally, a community of interest that is critical in our area is the water issue. Are you aware that the ADWR Water Atlas categorizes a major portion of Yavapai County in the Central Highlands planning area, and our water future has little to nothing in common with Mojave, La Paz, and Yuma counties who you've married us to in this new CD4 district. In my opinion, you've missed the mark there. Commissioners, Prop 106 states that you are to create competitive districts to the extent practicable, where doing so would not create any specific or any significant detriment to the other goals listed. My overall point here is this, and now I'm closing. In serving the common and recognized community interests, some of which I've just stated, the current CD1 configuration, imperfect as it may be, the current district with Yavapai County and the Verde Valley included with other more north of Maricopa counties who have similar communities of interest, the current district configuration is better than the one you've developed. And it's better because it's more in line with our central to northern rural communities, their economies, and the other larger communities of interest that I've noted as far as effective, fair, and balanced representation is concerned. So you need to reconsider the redrawing or the drawing of the CD1 and CD4 districts, keeping in mind that population density involves more than just people per square mile. Communities of interest topics must be received on a regional as well as a local basis. The rural land north of Maricopa is different from that south of Maricopa. And your current proposals show too much gerrymandering and the lack of compactness required by Proposition 106. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Charlene Mullen, representing Self from Yavapai.
My name is Charlene Mullen, SHARLENE-MULLEN. I live in the village of Oak Creek. We are a rural community, and I am opposed to the proposed maps that break up Yavapai County and District 1. While I appreciate your efforts, this commission has no representatives from Yavapai County and seem to have not taken our interests into consideration. You are asking for concrete suggestions, and mine is to keep Yavapai County intact, including all of Sedona and the Verde Valley. We share community interests in water, transportation, schools, law enforcement, and many other services with Cottonwood, Clarkdale, Prescott, and Prescott Valley, and not with Flagstaff and our urban neighbors to the south. I urge you to keep Yavapai County intact and to put community interests ahead of politics.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christine Lutz, representing Self, and you can tell us where you're from.
Good evening. My name is Christine Lutz. It's Chrisistine
Lutz. I live in Sedona, and I'm in Yavapai County, where I pay taxes, and I'd like my votes to stay there too. The Verde Valley should not be broken up. It works just fine the way it is. We have more in common with Prescott, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, Camp Verde, and Cornville than we ever would with Flagstaff or anything in Phoenix. We are rural communities, and we have many of the same interests and needs. We share water, we share law enforcement, we share hospitals, we share road construction, highways, things that we need fixed. We're all on the same page, and we want to stay on the same page. I really can't help feeling that there is gerrymandering going on here, and I don't think it's the American way.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rex Malden, representing Self from Chino Valley. After Rex will be Sarah Reinsch, Glenn Miller, and Kurt Womack.
Okay, Rex Malden is Mauldin. And I had a choice tonight whether to write my comments on a little blue sheet or put a face to my comments by being here, taking the time. I appreciate your time as well. I agree with everything I've heard here, so I don't need to repeat, and so we can move on. I'm concerned about water issues because I live in Chino Valley where the headwaters of the Verde River is. I certainly don't want to see the breaking up of the Camp Verde area, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, and so forth. It was mentioned about Williams. It's more tied in with the economy of Chino Valley. I know a lot of people go from Chino Valley to Williams and so forth and on and on. But there's some other things I noticed on this map that don't make sense to me. Kingman and Flagstaff are transportation hubs, railroad, roads, airports, and yet there's no connectivity between those two. Quartzsite and Phoenix is another area that there's a lot of traffic goes between those corridors, or Quartzsite and Yuma. One of these other maps shows parts of the district south of the highway down there. Marana grew from Tucson, and it's got its own district. I don't understand this. If this is connectivity going on, this doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, I know there's other people who want to talk. I just want to show up and say my piece here. Thank you.
Yeah. Our next speaker is Sarah Reinsch, representing Self from Prescott.
That's Sareinsch. And good work on pronouncing it. I'm only representing myself, but I have discussed it with quite a few friends and neighbors, and every single one of them wants to keep Yavapai County intact. The new map is contiguous, but it is not compact. It swoops around to the east side of Phoenix. And basically, except for being human beings and citizens of Arizona, we have almost nothing in common as far as communities of interest with them. Our primary industries are rural tourism, mining, and ranching. Our water concerns are also different from theirs. I'm being very brief. Most everybody has given the details of these things. But with our county intact, as far as competitiveness is concerned, since I've been here, we have elected a Republican, followed by a Democrat, followed by a Republican. So we must be a very competitive district. That was all for CD1. For LD14, pretty much the same thing. What do we, Prescott Valley, Dewey, Humboldt, and Chino Valley have to do with Metro Phoenix? You cut away about approximately 40,000 people with the same interests we have and replace them with metropolitan areas that have no interests in common with us. Also, mayors and supervisors of the city of Williams and cities of the Verde Valley have sent you letters asking to be kept with the Quad Cities. We have common interest in management of fire issues, water issues, and we share the rural area. We should be kept together. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Glenn Miller, representing self from Yavapai.
I'm in Prescott, city of Prescott. Name is spelled Glennmiller, just like the band leader. 2 points of order have to be made before I give my comments. There's a sign back here. It says Chicago politics in Yavapai County. This has no place in this room. You have to have consistent rules. This is obviously representing an opinion. And second, everybody here, for the most part, has been following the rules for the 3-minute rule. One gentleman, though he was very articulate, violated that rule outrageously. You should have a gong up here, or a buzzer, or maybe a little 30-second light or so. So tell somebody they've got 30 seconds to go, and so they know when they have to wrap up their 3 minutes. You got to be consistent. You got to have rules and follow the rules. CD4, a general principle I wanted to make is that looking at the maps, they're emphasizing this idea that you have to have rural districts over and above making geographically contiguous districts. That is, keeping a geographical region of the state intact to the best ability that you can. For example, CD4 is a rural district, wraps around kind of like a little fish or whatever into east of the valley of Metro Phoenix, picking up Apache Junction, when maybe Yuma would be more appropriately tacked on possibly to create a CD4. I want to second the comments in today's Arizona Republic, or in the last few days in the Arizona Republic, by Luis Heredia, Executive Director of the Democratic Party, and Andre Cherney, Chairman of my party, the Democratic Party, that we need to have more competitive districts in the LD map. And looking at LD7, why is LD7 so large compared to the other districts geographically? There should be some kind of balance in terms of how much they range geographically. To sum it up, I question why it's so important to have solely rural districts over and above geographic cohesiveness. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kurt Womack, representing self from Yavapai, and after Kurt will be Dorothy O'Brien, Roger Morgan, and Donna Tanzi.
All right, thank you for doing this. My name's Kurt Womack, Kurtwomack. Ditto pretty much everybody else that spoke before me. I, as a non-professional, I'm not a bureaucrat. When I look at that map, I think the old saying about computers, garbage in, garbage out. The first map he shows the grid layout that to me seemed pretty logical and straightforward. And then the next map was shown, kind of made me think there's a garbage disposal feature on that computer program with Maricopa County as the center of the vortex. I find that map on the left there, our county wrapping down into the southern part of Phoenix. Come on, that makes no logical sense. And I'll be blunt on my next comment. It's obvious that the Voters Act, whatever it is, has subjugated points C, D, and E out of Prop 106. It looks like political correctness rules the day.
Oh, sorry. I was continuing to write. Dorothy O'Brien. And you can tell us who you're representing from Yavapai.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Dorothy O'Brien, capital O, apostrophe, capital B, R-I-E-N. And I am here as the past president of Big Park Regional Coordinating Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I also chair our task force on redistricting. And Madam Chairman, I'm hoping that we have some civil discourse, because my statements will be the same that I have made for our community at other redistricting hearings like this. So here we go. First of all, the city of Sedona is part of a greater Sedona area. As I've said before, and many have said before me, the municipal part is just part. Around the municipality are several election precincts, all comprising unincorporated parts of the greater Sedona community. We are a cohesive unit. We share, as Vice Mayor Hamilton said, all those various districts and services. The community is desirous of staying together as a greater Sedona area, so that's really key for us as a community. Secondly, our community is desirous of staying with CD1, the congressional district map that you have put forward, provided we can, be part of the Sedona community that you designate in there as it is drawn. We heard lots of comments from people who feel otherwise, and I would certainly fight for their right to speak their opinion. So what I would like to say is that our community, while our community shares several links with our neighbors to the north. In Yavapai County, there is a strong, proud history. There is no dispute about that, a proud history. We also have links to our northern brothers and sisters. When you come through the Sedona area, about 3 million visitors, 3 million tourists come through. That's a huge economic driver for the whole entire area. Those people come through, they'll stay in Sedona, look at the Red Rocks, they'll do some cultural things there, but ultimately they are heading towards Grand Canyon, perhaps Hopi Land, perhaps Navajo Lands, Monument Valley, and some of the activities around Flagstaff. Yes, they're also coming out to Charlotte Hall Museum, some of the other things as well, no question. But the community is desirous of being a greater Sedona area in CD1 as you have it drawn. So that's one point. The other point is the natural resources. And I would like to just take a minute and say that we've recently gone through our county redistricting. And I am very sad to say that a large portion of the public comment and the written comments were completely not taken into consideration at all. And in fact, an alternate map was drawn, did not go through the same public process, and then during the public hearing when it was approved, we were told that it really didn't matter, that the elected officials didn't have to listen to public comment. It was very disappointing, very disappointing. So now what we find in the Verde Valley is that we have one district and there are 4 others. So I would hope that some of what we have heard tonight is true, but just as we've heard the statements about Maricopa and some of the other unwanted bedfellows, if you will, I would say the same thing, that given our past treatment and the fact that the Verde Valley, and particularly some of the other communities within the Verde Valley, are not heard, are overwhelmed consistently, our voices are discounted, that it's almost time for us to perhaps look to the north and have our voices heard. And I'm sorry to say that, but if I didn't say it, I would not be telling you what the discussion is in our communities when we meet. So ladies and gentlemen, there you have it on Congressional District 1. On the legislative district, we will have more to say, but we are about to meet about that so that we can come back to you with some concrete facts. So that's a little different than you've heard so far tonight, but thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Roger Morgan, representing Self from Chino Valley.
It's Roger Morgan, R-O-G-E-R-M-O-R-G-A-N. I guess I have a little different perspective on this overall thing because I think in terms of a retired small business owner. I think in terms of keeping things simple, not making things so difficult that it makes processes and maps and all this things that I'm looking at more difficult for the small business. Because we always get involved in having to pay people to do non-productive things for a small business. Taxes, you name it, we get involved in it. I am currently retired. I don't have to deal with that anymore, but I still think that way. I also noticed that you have to have approval from the Department of Justice, which I actually have not much use for these days. I don't think they're doing their job. So what I'm saying is, I've lived in the area about 7, 8 years now. Came from California, which a lot of people have, and I came here on purpose because I thought things were simpler. There was a great sense of community in this area. The people that represent us really care. So therefore, all I'm asking is, let's not make things so difficult that it makes it harder on everybody. That's my comment.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Donna Tansey, representing Self from Prescott, and after Donna will be Craig Brown, Bill Warren, and Pam Pearsall.
Good evening. Tansey is spelled T-A-N-Z-I. When you consider Yavapai County geographical location is anywhere between 3,500 and 6,000 feet.
They can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Anyway, when you consider that we're between 3,500 and 6,000 feet in elevation, and our economical concerns include forestry, mining, and ranching, then why would the redistricting map lump us together with the western part of the state that has elevations at sea level and where agriculture rules? Water issues alone are so very different in the western part of the state where the Colorado River flows versus the many groundwater issues we have in Yavapai County. Good water and good forest management is critical to the survival of the Verde Valley and the Prescott Quad cities. Best we not be deluded with the issues that are not common to Yavapai County. It makes no sense to split the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Craig Brown, representing Williamson Valley Community Organization.
I'm Craig Brown, common spelling. I came here to echo many of the things that people have already said here today, but I started to look very closely at the congressional district mapping, and it was so confusing and so involved that it's just a big mess, in my opinion. Secondarily, we went on to look at the legislative, and I'd echo my friends over here from the Verde Valley that they don't want to be split from this area. We live on the west side of the county, and we would ask that they stay a part of our neighborhoods and our participation in the processes that we have in this area. Not much more beyond that, or I'd be just being redundant, but we'd like you to, it's a very common and easy thing to fix, small area, give it back to us, that's what we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bill Warren, representing Self from Prescott.
Madam Chairman, just so I kind of have an idea who I'm talking to, are any of the commissioners from Northern Arizona? Okay, thank you. We in Northern Arizona have unique problems that Phoenix and Tucson don't have. One, and I want to take just a few minutes and say that the main problem that we have, and the main problem that determines our survival or not, is water. And we have a mountain range that runs right through our county, and that mountain range provides the water for all of the communities. And you may or may not know, but this has been a disputed item for a number of years. And what I'm concerned about is if Yavapai County, with its unique problem, is not properly represented in Congress by a congressman or woman who knows and is concerned about our problems, our water need, that our existence could be challenged. And so I urge you to keep Yavapai County a single congressional district so we can be represented and our unique survival can be properly addressed. And I also would like to say that please don't draw up a districting map that you think will please the Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, may I address the gentleman's first comment?
Sure, Stu.
I get that question often, and so I researched it. You have to understand the commission goes out of business. Okay. The commission goes out of business between redistricting cycles. So a third party, the Committee on Judicial Appellate Court Appointments, advertises for members of the commission, takes applications, and picks finalists. Because obviously the commission can't do it because it doesn't exist yet. Now, I looked this up. This time around, only 11 of the 79 applications came from outside Maricopa and Pima counties. There was one application from Yavapai County, one application from Coconino County, and one application from Mojave County. My point is nobody from your counties applied to be on the commission.
So we'll move on in public comment. Our next speaker is Pam Pearsall, representing Self, and is the county assessor?
Yes.
Great, and from Yavapai.
Yes, Pam Pearsall, P-E-A-R, like the fruit pear, S as in Sam, A-L-L. I am the Yavapai County Assessor, but today I'm here representing myself. Again, I want to echo what's been said so many times. I truly would like to see Yavapai County kept as a whole. I tend to look at things as a land use issue out of the eyes of an assessor, but we share so many things in Yavapai County. We share the sheriff's office. We have the same recorder, the same treasurer, the same board of supervisors, the same assessor, these things are important, I think, to all of us. We're neighbors, we're friends, we're family. I think that Verde Valley and Sedona are extremely important to the whole. When you look at our community, we rely a lot on ranching, on grapes, agritourism, tourism, similar businesses. But when we look at some of the communities that you have us lumped with, they have challenges, but they're different challenges than what we have. I would hate to think that our representative spends energy away from our challenges on some of theirs. I talked to the Mojave County assessor and I said, tell me about your community and how you're different from Yavapai County. He said we completely have different grazing, different length of grass, things like that. We have different water issues. And one of our main challenges is polygamy. And we board in Nevada, and we all have a lot of land fraud back from the 1950s, things that Yavapai County, we don't have. And I don't want my representatives wasting that energy. I then went to Yuma, and I asked the Yuma assessor, Joel Worley, what do you see different about your community, or do you think we're the same? And he said, no, we farm cotton and vegetables. Up in Yavapai County, you have grapes, which don't grow down here. You have completely different water issues in Yavapai County. And while our history is interesting, Yavapai County was the capital of Arizona. We have a fine history and a lot of tourism because of that history. And that history is all of Yavapai County. So anyways, I would ask you to really consider the, what was the argument? The communities of interest. Because as I say the community of interest, those are the kind of things I think about. Property tax issues, mining, the college, the county. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is, and you'll have to forgive me on pronunciation, Wayubs Shimizu, followed by Mike Savalas, and then Douglas Wade.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Wims Shimizu, Whiskey Yankee, Mama, Bravo Sierra, Space, Sierra Hotel, Indigo, Mama, Indigo, Zulu Uniform. WYMBS, SHIMIZU. Call me Bob. Thanks very much for your time. The existing Yavapai County borders are sufficient unto all of these causes, with the inclusion of the Verde Valley and perhaps the addition of the town of Williams. That, I think, is appropriate for both the legislative draft map and the congressional draft map. How many people here from Glendale? No surprise.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mike Savalas. You can tell us how to pronounce it. Sorry about that. And representing self, and if you can tell us where you're from.
Mike Savalas. I reside in Prescott Valley, one of the last houses in Prescott Valley. My last name is Siavelis. Okay, we have more in common, like a lot of people have already said, with the Verde Valley than we do down in Phoenix. That's a given. Now, there's a lot of people in this room that feel that there's way too many changes happening in our country. And here we are on a centennial celebration in Arizona, and we're going to split up Yavapai County just in preparation for the celebration, along with not being District 1 anymore. I mean, it just slaps everybody right in the face along with everything else that's happening in this country. It's really depressing to see this. Now, along with the fellow said over here, he didn't have many applications from people in this area, but I guarantee you, if these maps go through the way they are, you will have hundreds of applications in 10 years. Hundreds. People will not forget what you do with this map. If you want to stir up a beehive, continue along the lines that you're taking here. You're separating Yavapai County. That's a historical county in this state. We're not ready for those kind of changes yet, just to get another Democrat elected. Like I said before, we have more in common with the Verde Valley than we do with Phoenix. I left Phoenix for a reason a while back, and I don't want to live there, and I don't want to go down there for meetings either. The map that you have on the congressional district, the proposed map that you're doing, is a lot worse than map number 2. I can't believe that you went from map 2 to what we have now. I don't see the logic behind that unless you're working for the Democrat Party. In my business and what I do for a living, I have to deal with common sense and logic all the time. I do not see it here. I'm glad I'm not making the maps. Maybe I should be. But you will get more, you will get hundreds of applications in 10 years.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Douglas Wade from Sedona. And after Douglas will be David Moorer, Harry Oberg, and Mona Patton.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McNulty, and staff, my name is Douglas Wade, W-A-D-E. I reside in Sedona, and I'm a 38-year resident of this great state of Arizona. Now, I understand you have a difficult job, but we, the people, have a difficult job as well, staying united when there are so many interests out there attempting to divide us. I have a long history with the Verde Valley, and this remapping divides the Verde Valley. The Verde Valley itself is compact, contiguous, and a community of interest, geographically divided by a mountain range and the Mogollon Rim. To carve it out the way it's done in CD1 appears to satisfy only the political interest of competitiveness, making CD1 more competitive, favoring one party more so than the other. Now, your job of carving up this pie, this state of Arizona, CD1 now appears to take nearly half of the state, leaving 8 other slices of pie to 8 other districts. I would say that carving out a little bit of Sedona and a small portion of the Verde Valley and moving it into CD1 divides it off from Yavapai County, our county seat Prescott, and really divides us as a community of interest. Our interests are one. That's the Verde Valley. I would like to suggest that you take a good hard look at taking the Verde Valley and putting it back together as one piece again.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Moorer, CEO, Prescott Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. David Maurer, M-A-U-R-E-R. Thank you, Commission members, for hearing me this evening. I too want to address the communities of interest portion of this. Our chamber represents 875 businesses in the Tri-City area and is one of 6 professional full-time chambers of commerce in Yavapai County. You've heard about the communities of interest. You've heard about many examples of how that community of interest works within Yavapai County. Let me give you one more, and that is the Central Arizona Chambers Coalition. Approximately 6 years ago, our 6 chambers got together and said, we all work and live in Yavapai County. Let's get together and talk about commonalities. So the Sedona, Cottonwood, Camp Verde, Prescott Valley, and Chino Valley chambers formed this loose-knit coalition. It got so formal as for about 3 years, when times were good and we all had a little bit of money, we pooled our resources and hired a part-time lobbyist at the state capitol. She kept our 6 chambers fully informed of what was happening down there and carried our message to the legislature. So that, to me, is another example of communities of interest. We hope you see it that way and hope you keep Yavapai whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Harry Oberg, representing Self from Prescott.
Good evening. My name is Harry Oberg, H-A-R-R-Y-O-B-E-R-G. Thank you for allowing us to have an opportunity to come here and make comments. My dad started to punch cows here in '29, and he worked throughout Yavapai County, both ranching and mining. He never thought of Yavapai County as being anything except the best place to live, and never worked for any other county in Arizona. He lived here all his life and died here. I went to school here, graduated in 1965 from the high school, and I think I can bring a strong perspective of how the people felt about Arizona and Yavapai County from the time of when I was born and lived with many people here that went to school. I can tell you that my dad felt that Yavapai was one community of interest, and that's the reason why I never left it. And he was very concerned about ranching and mining, and basically the agriculture that supported the ranching, which is primarily the farming of alfalfa. I've looked at your two maps, and I feel that I must provide some comments to be addressed by your commission. One of your goals is to respect communities of interest. All the communities of Yavapai County, Sedona, Prescott Valley, Verde Valley, and Seligman, to name just a few, all have common interest, goals, and history. These communities are rural, engaged in agriculture, ranching, and mining, and have similar issues related to water based on our common geology. As a result, Yavapai County should be kept whole and not have portions of the county redistricted to other areas of the state that do not share the same history and concerns. Yavapai County should be kept whole as a single district for both legislative and congressional reasons. Our common community interests will be best represented by legislative and congressional representatives who fully understand the issues and needs facing our county. In addition, Yavapai, La Paz, Mojave, and the non-reservation portions of Coconino County should be considered one congressional district because they are all rural and they all have mining and ranching as part of their history. And we should have no portion of Maricopa County being included in that district. Since Yavapai County is within 2% of the required population to be considered our own legislative and congressional district, it would be unfair for any of our communities to be separated from the county for 10 years when it is likely that we will reach the required population level in a very short time, possibly in 1 to 2 years. In Prescott, I know several people moving into our residential areas from out of state and building homes. This rate seems to be accelerating compared to the last 3 years. So I feel that, we're going to reach that point where we could be our own district here in the very near future, and it would be totally unfair for any of our communities to be separated from the community or from the county for 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just checking on our court reporter. She says she's okay, so. After Mona Patton, we will have Catherine Sinke, Joshua Mazon, and Jonathan Mazon. So this is Mona Patton representing self from Yavapai.
Hello, I'm Mona Patton, M-O-N-A-P-A-T-T-O-N. I am here to chastise each and every member of this so-called independent commission for his or her failure to act in a fair and nonpartisan manner. It is your fiduciary responsibility to represent the citizens of Arizona, not the Democrat or the Republican Party. Arizona voters demand that you do not pander to political pressure. You have failed to draw compact districts that respect communities of interest. Instead, you have carved up communities in an attempt to give unfair advantage to one party over another. Your current proposed map is a miserable failure. Go back to the drawing board and correct your maps. Yavapai County and Arizona deserve better.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Catherine Sinke, retired community health manager representing self from Yavapai.
Well, I have spent the last 30 years working in community and public health. My name is Catherine with a C, C-A-T-H-E-R-I-N-E, and then Sinke is S-I-N-K-E-Y. And for both state and local government, and so I've spent most of my life trying to operationalize what somebody else has said we need to do. So when I got to thinking about these programs, and I've been in probably every nook and cranny in the state from a public health and community health standpoint. So I just sat down and I looked at all the counties, and I looked at all the programs, and I looked at the demographics, and realized that this map was not continuous nor contiguous, if you really look at it, from all of the people that live there and do the work. And I appreciated the guy that talked about the small business, because there are a lot of businesses in Yavapai County that frankly depend on all those other people from all those other counties that we want to put with us to come up here for the summer, because it's 115 there. So they certainly aren't anything like us as far as altitude and all that sort of thing. And people said some really much more clear than I could ever say, so I won't go back into that. But I'd like to get practical here for a little bit and just talk about the people that work and live in the county. And I agree with keeping the county together, by the way. So you have people like public health nurses that cover for each other. They talk to each other. They go to meetings together from both sides of the mountain, from top to bottom of the county. It's a huge county. If you've ever gotten in a car and just driven around it, I've been lost a time or two. It takes 2 hours to get to Bisbee from here, and it's only 60 miles. So if that tells you anything, kind of like the ruralness, I moved here 8 years ago because I got tired of the heat, and I am thrilled to death. And I have a pine tree in my backyard, and I'm really excited about that. So I want things to kind of stay, that's sort of a community kind of thing. I've watched the nurses go in, and all of the families that live in Ashfork, for instance. I'd like to make a plea for Williams, too, by the way, if we could put that on our list, because Williams is only 16 miles from Ashfork, and most people that live in Ashfork have to drive the 40 miles to Prescott. Is a lot harder in the winter than going on the freeway, and even in the summer, than going on the freeway and going to Flagstaff, or not Flagstaff, Williams. So they will get WIC and all of that kind of stuff. They will get community health, that kind of stuff they get in Williams. So we would love to have them come join us and let some of those other people all be together that live along the rivers and Maricopa County, and trust me, they are nothing like Yavapai County. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joshua Maison from Prescott Valley.
M-A-Z-O-N. All right, first off, I am opposed to this new district map. A lot of people already stepped on my toes, and I'm happy about that because they all said what I was going to say anyway, but I'm going to reiterate a little bit. Yavapai County has different values and community interests than the Valley. Some people actually move out of the big cities because of this reason, so that their voice can be heard. How can a representative effectively serve his district when the voters are far apart in needs and views and priorities for their government? It seems that the commission turned an easy task into millions of dollars of expense to attempt to swing this district Democrat, which you probably could have asked a high school geography and economics class to do a better job. This is a political-based move to try to promote an agenda, which is obvious by whom the supporters are. And I actually had the Chicago politics written down, but he covered it. Yavapai County is one of the highest voter turnouts percentage-wise in the state, which means that the citizens here in this area are concerned about our government. You would think that that would mean that the government would try to listen to us instead of suppress our views, which is what this redistricting is aiming at. And I have voted in every election since I turned 18, but I wasn't 18 in 2000 when Prop 106 was voted on. And except I didn't vote the year I was in Iraq. And one member should be, at least one member should be above Maricopa County. on this commission board. And maybe you should advertise more for commission seats. Not just in like Democratic headquarters, but it seems consistent with how secretive this commission works in the first place that you would do that. And one final thing that hasn't been mentioned, and now I work for a local fire department, is wildland firefighting and protection. And I wonder how high on the priority list for Valley residents in Metro Phoenix, how much they care about wildland fires and their protection from it. That's it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jonathan Mazon from Yavapai.
Mazon. That's my brother. I have a book right here that some of you might be familiar with, Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. And here it says right here, the 10th rule of ethics of means and ends is that you do what you can with what you have and you clothe it with moral arguments. Basically, I'm going to do whatever the heck I want to do, and I'm going to do it because I have a moral argument at hand. We're going to save the people, and Kirkpatrick is going to vote for the health care law. Well, frankly, I think that's crazy. To let you know who I am, I'm a full-time teacher, and I work part-time at a West Yavapai Guidance Clinic. I work 60 hours a week helping people. I don't work 60 hours a week helping people that see everything fall apart. I have a kid over here, and this is his name's Israel Mazon. He's 6 months. When he is older, I want him to have a intact Yavapai County to work with. Here's something else that has been mentioned. We are so interconnected with Camp Verde. I know, and stuff. I used to work at Home Depot when I was working full-time and going to college full-time. I didn't have a bureaucratic parent from Jersey paying for my college. I worked my butt off. Okay? And constantly, people from Camp Verde would come to Home Depot because they didn't have a Home Depot. We are so connected that people come there and back. In fact, I'm a wrestler. I wrestled, and we always go to Camp Verde. We always go to Cottonwood to wrestle. I have never been to Yuma to wrestle. Plus, the whole idea of democracy comes from Greece, right? Guess what? A Spartan would never have an Athenian represent him. Also, I think it's ironic that on the whole point of Arizona coming into existence is because we didn't want to be represented from people from Santa Fe, New Mexico, right? And on our centennial birthday, you're going to go against that entire concept of being represented by the people with whom you live. Okay, that totally flies in the face of what Arizona stands for. Also, there is something about minority rights. At this whole thing up here, minority rights. What about majority rights? Isn't that what Democrats are? Dema means people, power to the people. Well, here's the people. If you're a true Democrat and not a progressive, then you would listen to us.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Barbara Nelson, and following Barbara will be Larry Nelson and then Sally Ann Lorette.
Hi, Barbara Nelson, B-A-R-B-A-R-A. Nelson. Throw everything all over the place here. Several people have gotten up here and spoken much more eloquently than I can about the issues. I'd just like to reiterate a couple of points. First of all, I'm very concerned about what I've heard about the fairness of the composition of this committee and the representation of Yavapai County and the other northern counties as to this redistricting process. I moved here 3 years ago from Washington. Washington State. I saw what gerrymandering did in that state. It was awful. And I see that happening here. And I'm very, very upset about it. First of all, the currently approved maps split Yavapai County up and Verde Valley out, placing us all potentially without representation. We are placed with other wholly non-contiguous counties, Mojave, La Paz, Maricopa, and Yuma in the congressional map. With hundreds of miles from northern to southern Arizona, this is not compact, and that's one of your criteria. So you have violated your duty to use those criteria. We have little, if any, community of interest with these other areas. We have different transportation issues. We have different economies. We are forest and mountain as opposed to desert. We have very different water issues, and that is a big topic since I've moved here. It's a huge topic. Rendering Yavapai County's voice reduced in all of these issues, significantly harming our county and the Verde Valley by splitting us up. So I oppose this map, and I would ask you to keep Yavapai County together. Thank you.
Thank you. I have about 8 more request to speak forms, and I just wanted to check. You're okay? Okay. Larry Nelson, representing self from Yavapai.
Yeah, from Prescott. And I'll talk quick. Well, first of all, I see no reason to split up Yavapai County. When I look at the legislative map, just neither one makes sense to me. But I suppose if the people of Sedona that are in Yavapai County really wanted out of Yavapai County, and the people of Williams really wanted in, maybe we could do a swap there as long as we keep the Verde River intact in Yavapai County. So, but I don't think that's really how the people of Sedona feel. And the other one, the first thing that struck me on the congressional map is, and I do have to echo the comment, if we have to make a change, option 2 really wasn't horrible. I don't think it's an improvement over what we have now. It's worse than what we have now, but it's much better than what's currently being proposed. I don't even know, how do you even get from Bullhead City to Yuma? How do you even get there except by boat? I think the real reason, or one of the real reasons is to having communities of interest is you have effective representatives representing you. How do you do that when things are so diverse between here and the west side of the state? I just don't. We have great legislators, but not super legislators. Anyway, I think we need to leave Yavapai County intact.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sally Ann Lorette, representing self from Prescott. After Sally Ann will be Christopher Campbell, Mike Flannery, and Gary Robbins.
I'm Sally Lorette, and it's Sally with a Y, L-E-R-E-T-T-E. I live in Prescott now, but I've been a resident at Yavapai County for 38 years. And the first 20 years I lived in the Verde Valley, in Cottonwood, on a little ranch on the Verde River. And then I lived in Clarkdale a while, and then 18 years ago I moved to Prescott. So I really know the Verde Valley, and I also really know Prescott, but The Verde Valley, I sold real estate for 30 years there and in Prescott, but I worked in Sedona, I worked in Camp Verde, I worked in Rimrock and Cottonwood, Clarkdale, and Jerome, sold real estate in Jerome. And I really, to me, when I see that you took the Verde Valley away, it's kind of like a divorce, a real big divorce, because we're so commonly linked, and I have family and friends that still live there. I know how they feel. I don't feel that they're happy at all from what I can tell by talking with them and seeing this. So I really feel that we need to keep the Verde Valley, Sedona in here. And the people that I talk to from Sedona don't feel that way. I mean, that feel they want to stay with us. I don't know about these other people representing them, but that's my personal views of what people I talk to. So anyhow, I really feel that the congressional district is way too chopped up, just like all these people have said for me. I hope you hear our call and our cry for help, we the people. I'd like you to keep Yavapai County one congressional district and also legislative. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christopher Campbell, representing Self, and you can tell us where you're from.
I'm from Prescott, Arizona, and Christopher is CHRISTOPHER, and Campbell is like the soup, CAMPBELL. Some of my comments may draw applause, others might draw boos. I would like for either response to be held to the end, both for the brevity of time, as well as so that I can keep my thoughts together and communicate most effectively. Thank you for being here tonight, and I appreciate all the hard work you have to do, along with what seems tonight to be like a thankless job, Madam Chairman. I would like to talk tonight about both the legislative district map as well as the congressional district map. And I'd like to start with some of the things that I like about the maps. I really like about the maps that it appears, more so with the congressional district map, but both with the legislative district map as well, that it really appears that the representatives are evenly divided amongst the population, so that everyone seems like they're evenly represented amongst all the various people in Arizona. Another statement that I'd like to make is something else that I like is something that was mirrored by some of the representatives from Sedona, in that it appears that the maps, particularly the legislative district map, really appears to keep the Sedona greater area in together with the Verde Valley area, and that they recognize that that is a much larger community of interest, and I happen to agree with that. But there are some things that I would like to share with you, some improvements that I believe might be made, or some adjustments, and I believe that they can be made fairly easily. One of those is that I, like many of my other associates here tonight, believe that Yavapai County could be one legislative district. And I believe that if we're going to expand beyond Yavapai County, it should be done in looking to expanding to the larger Sedona area and into the larger area of the Black Canyon City area. The other areas that are surrounding Yavapai County, that their communities stretch over into another district, but only in very minor fashions, as opposed to stretching down a great deal into Maricopa County or some of the other counties. One of the other things with regard to the congressional district map I would like to see is the same. I would like to see all of Yavapai County, or at least all of its communities of interest, kept together in one congressional district as well. And I believe that this can be done very effectively and easily. So I would like both of those things to be considered. I would also like, as has been brought up in the past, we have a very long tradition and very long history of having Yavapai County Congressional and Legislative District 1 for the reasons that have been explained repeatedly in the past over this evening. And so I would like those matters to be considered. Is my time up? Okay. Well,
please wind it up.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate you hearing my thoughts.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mike Flannery from Prescott Valley. After Mike is Gary Robbins, Zena Mitchell, and Drake Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner McNulty, and staff. Mike Flannery, Flannery. Welcome to Prescott Valley.
Thanks.
One of the things I really like about you guys going out on public hearing tour is I don't have to follow you around the state. You're now in my neighborhood, so thank you and welcome. I guess I need to, I was handed a resolution and I need to read to you, so if you would bear with me, a resolution from Dewey Humboldt. Whereas Dewey Humboldt needs to emphasize the fact that rural means non-urbanized area, and whereas the more logical fix to the underpopulation would be to move Flagstaff and Western Coconino into Western Rural District 4, and whereas in doing so, these issues, the issues such as the communities of interest, contiguousness, and compact would apply. And we encourage, or whereas we encourage the Commission to maintain the District 1 numbering for both legislative and congressional districts for historical purposes, and whereas applying this method would compensate for moving the Western Coconino into District 4 would make both districts more competitive, and whereas we need again to emphasize the fact that the Quad Cities and the Verde Valley communities need to stay together in both congressional and legislative districts. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Common Council of Dewey Humboldt, Arizona, support the above resolution passed and adopted by the Mayor and Common Council of Dewey Humboldt, Arizona, this 11th day of October 2011. Signed, Mayor Terry Nolan. So if I can give that to Stuart, is it?
Yes, Stuart, take it.
First of all, I want to say I appreciate everything that the Commission does. I know that it's a terrible task for you, and if no matter what you do, you're going to get yelled at by somebody. And you really need someone to come forward with potential, and I say potential, solutions rather than just criticism of what you have done. So let me do that, since I think you've only got a couple more speakers tonight. Congressional district. I know you've heard this before. So on the congressional side, and instead of going down into Maricopa County for that, what used to be the River District, we'll call it the Western Rural District. Instead of going down into Maricopa County and over across the top and down and picking up Gila and going down into Pinal County, the solution was to either, and we heard it here this evening as well, potentially going into Yuma and picking up more of Yuma for some of that population, or even going into, and I know this is a sensitive one, going into Flagstaff and Western Coconino County and picking that up. If you did that, then you could go ahead and pick up those other communities which everybody is complaining about and bring those into District 1, which would be more of an eastern rural communities. But right now, as it is, when that comes across the state and picks that up, people from the west are saying it's not a western rural community. So just a thought on that. Also, the fact is that if you did that, it would equal out the competitiveness as well. So just a thought. Legislative map. I know the last time I think I stood before you, I had somewhat concerns, and I think I gave you some heart failure on it. When I misunderstood that the map was going down into Maricopa County and then even down into Pinal County, and you guys were fixing Maricopa County and Pinal County, and I said that you were going in the wrong direction, and you looked at me bewildered and said, "We haven't even dealt with Yavapai County yet." I was wrong. You had just put that map up there. However, you didn't go down into to Pinell for legislative district. You went into very rural Maricopa, but as you've heard tonight, if you can take that rural Maricopa out, go back up into Yavapai County, bring in the Verde Valley, which you've heard a strong presentation tonight by a lot of people, to bring in the Verde Valley, and we've got 211, I'm sorry, somebody misquoted that, it's 211, 33 people in Yavapai County. That brings us 2,000 shy. Well, we like Williams, and Williams has already petitioned you to belong to Yavapai County. A solution worth looking at. Anyway, I want to thank you. One thing I did want to say, when you were here back in July, Commissioner McNulty, I know that you weren't, but Chairman Mathis, you were. I came before you and I said, you need to adopt definitions as soon as possible so that they can be applied across the state equally for all of the things that are going to be applied. And to date, we don't have it, and we're out doing maps. I think we could get out of a lot of hot water if we'd had those definitions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gary Robbins, representing Self from Coconino, followed by Zena Mitchell, Drake Mitchell, and Eleanor Lazak.
Madam Chairman, my name is Gary Robbins, G-A-R-Y-R-O-B-B-I-N-S. I was not able to be at the commission hearing in Flagstaff back on Thursday due to out-of-state volunteer commitment. I'm sorry, I will speak closer to you. My goodness. Okay. I think that the commission suffers from an unconscious urbanism bias. 10 years ago, one of the members of the commission was from St. John's, if memory serves. I've lived in Maricopa County, I've lived in Pima County. Both are wonderful. It's different in rural Arizona. If I had been here in July, I would have said, start at the 37th parallel, which is our border with Utah, come down 3 degrees to the 34th parallel, and that's one congressional district. It's a little bit late for me to make that point, but if you took the 5 northern counties, Mojave, Yavapai, Coconino, Navajo, Apache, you are within 12,000 people of the exact number of people you need to have for a congressional district. There are 2 other solutions. Leaving aside the other districts, my suggestion would be that you would take CD4 to the limit of Yavapai County, go north to the Mogollon Rim, and then go straight across at the Mogollon Rim, which is a natural boundary. You would have 2 districts of equal size. Coconino County has a great deal, the non-native portion of Coconino County has a great deal in common with Yavapai County. I've probably been to Yavapai County 10 times for every time I've been to the native portion of Coconino County, let alone Navajo or Apache County. I have a very quick solution. Pinell County is the 3rd most populous county in the state of Arizona. It has 375,000 people living there. I agree that the portion of the Tohono O'odham tribe, which is in CD3, must stay there. You cannot divide up an Indian reservation. However, with the rest, but that's only 1% of Pinell County's population. Pinell County comprises more than half the number of people you need for a congressional district. However, 180,000 of that number of people is in CD4. They want to be in CD1. They're in CD4. The non-native portion of CD1, the non-native portion of Coconino County that's in CD1, wants to be in CD4. The Verde Valley portion of CD1 desperately wants to be in CD4. My suggestion is people of the Santan Valley want to be in CD1. We want to be in CD4. How about a straight-up exchange? We want to be here. They want to be there. I see it as a win-win solution where you've respected everyone's needs. Also, I believe that Pinell County has now achieved the point where it ought to have a county, it ought to have a congressional district where it is primarily located. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Zena Mitchell, representing self from Yavapai County.
Zena Mitchell, Zenamitchell. I have a question. Considering the Voters' Rights Act, Section 5, would you please explain in detail how the redistricting pertains to blacks in Yavapai and Pima counties? There are so very few in each of these counties, and as far as I know, and I used to live in Tucson, they aren't in pockets, but very scattered. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Drake Mitchell, representing self from Sedona.
Madam Chairman, Commissioner, thank you for your time this evening. I am from Sedona, and if you call it Sedona Verde Valley, which we often do, Sedona Village of Oak Creek as a community, some people call Village of Oak Creek Big Park area. We have liked the congressional district we're in. Again, we share more in common with the Verde Valley Cottonwood area. I enlisted in the service out of Cottonwood and 17 years later came home. It's a rural district, and people who don't understand the concept of the difference in the feel between a rural district and an urban environment, again, we're not represented here. We don't feel we are. If you haven't lived the lifestyle, you don't understand. I'm sorry. I just don't feel it's possible for me to explain it. We do things different. We help our neighbors. We know our neighbors. For a short time, I lived in a big city, and I could not have told you the names of 10 people that lived across my street. That is not the way it is here. I would like you to consider the possibility of keeping the Verde part of Yavapai County. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Eleanor Lazak, representing self from Yavapai. After Eleanor is Eric LeBlanc and Steve Rutherford.
Hi, welcome to Yavapai County. I didn't intend to speak tonight, but after I've heard the comments, I have something to say. First of all, I'm from Prescott Valley. My name is Eleanor. Last name is Lazok, Lazok. I was raised by Chicago, north of Chicago. I'm very familiar with Chicago politics and the politics in the Midwest. Okay, I moved to Arizona in 1957, lived in Maricopa County 15 years, was married and raised my 5 children there. We moved to Yavapai County in 1972. I thought Arizona is different than Illinois, okay. I believe that this whole process and the maps are bogus, and this is all a waste of time, actually, because I have a question. Why was one of the Republican Commission members allowed to abstain, which makes the whole commission out of balance? You have 2 Republican, 1 Independent, and 2 Democrat. The Republican is allowed to abstain, and so you go ahead and do the maps anyway. I don't think it's right. And why is the Republican person that didn't vote not here tonight?
Our next speaker is Eric LeBlanc, representing self from Chino Valley.
Thank you very much for all you folks coming up here. I've lived in this Yavapai County practically all my life. I started school in Sedona when we still had rodeos. I've gone to school in Camp Verde, I've gone to school in Cottonwood, Mingus Union, Yavapai College. I've been all over the county. For a short time, I also lived in Flagstaff, and I also lived in Phoenix. So I know how different those communities are from the communities of the Verde Valley and Prescott. It's, I imagine, hard for a city person to understand what a rural community is like and what the people are like. It's more, it kind of sounds sappy, but it's more like the rural communities, more like a family. You don't have that in a city. You have strangers. Anytime I was in Flagstaff or in Phoenix, you don't have the friendships that you do, lifelong friendships that you build. In Sedona and in Cottonwood and in Prescott. We have the same kind of culture, a ranching culture, that you didn't have back down there. We have one college that unites us all. We even have one jail that serves the entire Verde Valley and Prescott area. You break off the Verde Valley, you're breaking a lot out of our county. That's about all I wanted to say. It's just from a lifelong resident. I didn't want to see us broken up and divided.
Thank you. My last request to speak for him is Steve Rutherford, if he's here. Okay. Did I miss anyone? Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission? Great. And if you could fill out a request to speak form, you can do it after you speak. That's okay. But you can come up now if you want.
I'm not good at this, but I also wasn't going to speak.
And if you could tell us your name and where you're from.
My name's Marla, last name Festenese, F-E-S-T-E-N-E-S-E. And I am a resident of Prescott. Moved here 7 years ago from California. And we long to have this rural lifestyle. And I would like to invite any of you on the board to come out to the place. Unfortunately, we don't live there anymore. But Crossroads Ranch was a community, a rural community. At that time, we had 46 acres, and it was a wonderful life. And I still go out there. I've got my horse out there. It's a total, as so many have said, I don't know. I find it really hard to mix us with Gila County, or it just doesn't seem right. I really, really wish, not politically, but just I really wish you'd go back and take another look and see if there's anything else that you can do. And maybe really listen to some of the comments that have been made here tonight. So that's about all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission that didn't already? Okay, well, gosh, I don't know how many people spoke tonight. It was close to 50 at least, and we really appreciate everyone coming and listening. And what I really appreciate even more than that is how many of you are still here, because oftentimes at these hearings, people leave right after they speak. And I think it's really important for us all to listen to each other. And the fact that you're all still here is pretty impressive. So let me ask my fellow commissioner, Ms. McNulty, if she has anything she'd like to say.
Thanks. I thank you also for coming on our work night. I know you all have busy days, as do we. This is a very complicated process, and we have all learned a great deal about it since we undertook this volunteer job. I've lived in Arizona a long time. I've been in every single part of the state. I've spent a lot of time in this part of the state, and it's beautiful, and I understand why you love it here. I grew up in a small town myself, so I understand what you're saying about a rural lifestyle. I also understand that we've been charged by the Constitution with a very difficult task, and one of the greatest assets of this state, I've learned in the many, many, many years I've lived here, is our diversity. We all share much more in common than separates us. So I appreciate you coming. I've heard what you have to say. I hope you will continue to remain involved in the process, learn more about what it is that we are charged with doing and what it is that your fellow citizens throughout the state are saying. As the mayor said at the beginning, when we're done with this process, some folks will be happy, some folks will be unhappy, but the reality is we will all still be Arizonans. And what we're trying to do is find the best way that we can meld all of these criteria together to give everybody a voice. So again, I thank you for coming.
Thank you. Our next hearing, just so everyone knows, is tomorrow evening in the city of Chandler at the Chandler City Hall. It starts at 6 p.m. and followed by Bullhead City on Wednesday night. So thank you again all for coming. This meeting is now adjourned. The time is 8:30 p.m.